What's the crack, guys? In this video I'm going to be talking about injuries, and more specifically rehabbing old injuries. Some people call it prehab, so rehab, prehab, same thing. Now I'm just going to pick the three most common injuries in GAA: hamstring injuries, ankle injuries and shoulder injuries. So a hamstring strain, an ankle, usually it's lateral ligament injury, and a shoulder rotator cuff injury. Now I am going to be recommending things to do if you've had that injury in the past. I'm not recommending you do these things straight away if you have the injury today, because with any injury, timing is really important, and what you do at a specific time is very important. So if you do have any of these injuries, make sure you go see your physio first, and they'll put your rehab program together, and they should put it together in the proper format based on how bad it is and how recent the injury was. But if you've had any of these injuries in the past, like over a month ago, then you can start to do this work. So first of all, before we start any of these, a massive component of reducing your risk of injury is keeping your resistance training going. So just getting to the gym regularly throughout the year is huge for reducing your risk of injury. So make sure you're doing that. The programs that I've included in this GYM and GAA series have exercises that will reduce your injury risk of all of these three. So they'll reduce your hamstring injury risk, your ankle injury risk and your shoulder injury risk. So number one, hamstrings. The one thing I want you to introduce to the program is Nordics. I want you to do everything else the exact same. Master your RDLs, get really good at those, because they're a huge strengthening exercise for hamstrings when they're done right. And I also want you to master Nordics, or get really good at Nordics, but more particularly a Nordic program. Rather than just doing the Nordic exercise, I want you to get in the habit of doing the Nordic program as it's prescribed. So I'm going to insert a caption here on the screen of the Nordic program, so you can see that it's a progressive program over time. Yes, it's just the one exercise, but it's progressive over time. And then eventually you hit a period where you do a lot of volume, and then you reduce that volume to maintain throughout the year. So the purpose of that Nordic program is to, first of all, introduce the loading on the hamstrings gradually, so that you don't have a lot of DOMs, because if you go straight into doing 3 sets 3 times a week, what happens is you build up a lot of DOMs on the hamstring, and typically people don't adhere or stick with the program. So it's a gradual introduction to the exercise and a gradual loading of the hamstrings, and then over time, over those first 10 weeks, we build up a lot of tolerance, so you build up a lot more volume. So you do a lot more work and the hamstrings get a lot stronger, and then after the 10 weeks is just maintenance. Now again, all the other exercises in that gym program, from lunges, RDLs, squats, hip thrusts, all of those are really important as well for maintaining a stronger lower limb, so strong legs and strong hamstrings. The other thing we want to do with our hamstrings is make sure that they're flexible enough. So hamstring drops or hamstring drop holds are a really good way to measure how flexible your hamstrings are, and a really good way to compare to the other side. So if you notice a deficit in flexibility in those hamstrings, or if your hamstrings just aren't flexible enough, full stop, you definitely want to do some of those in your program. Okay, number two is the ankle, and usually with an ankle we get a lateral ankle sprain. So you go over the outside of your ankle and you get swelling on the outside, and a lot of times when people get this injury, particularly within GAA, it just tends to be ignored. People just rest for a couple of weeks and then it goes away, and then they just continue back into sport and they don't worry about it. But what that actually does is puts you at more risk of it happening again in the future. So there's a couple of things, or a couple of tests that you can do, or a couple of exercises you can do to see how does it compare to the other side, and to see, do you actually have any deficit there, either with range of motion or with strength. And if you do, then that's something you definitely want to rehab. I've had a lot of ankle injuries in the past, and if I don't stay on top of it, and if I don't strengthen up those ankles, I tend to get reoccurrences. So the first two exercises we're going to talk about are stretches. We want to stretch the front of the ankle, and we want to stretch the back of the ankle. So a heel sit is a good way to stretch out the front of the ankle, and typically this is really tight in comparison to an uninjured side. You want to hold that for at least 30 to 40 seconds. If we want to stretch the back of the ankle, then we've got to focus on a calf stretch and a soleus stretch. Typically these aren't as affected as the interior structures of the ankle. Next thing to look at are strengthening exercises. Now, calf raises are already put into your program, and the calf muscle is quite a big muscle and it's quite powerful. Usually with a lateral ankle sprain or any kind of ankle sprain, the calf isn't too involved and it's not a major issue. But there's two muscles either side of that ankle, and those muscles are injured. No matter what kind of ankle injury you have, you're going to be injuring one of those two muscles. Whether it's a lateral ankle sprain, you're going to injure the lateral muscles, or if it's a medial ankle sprain, you're going to be injuring the medial muscles. So you have to rehab those, because 90% of the time when someone goes over their ankle, they don't rehab those muscles. So we've got ankle inversion, which is pulling the ankle inwards or the foot inwards, and we've got ankle eversion, which is pulling the foot outwards. The ankle eversion is probably the one that will get you the most, because if you've sprained the lateral component of your ankle, this is the muscle that's going to be affected. The technique on these two exercises is so important. So if you're watching the video, you want to make sure that that leg is staying really stable. You don't want to be moving that leg, so we don't want any rotation of the femur. We want to keep the leg super steady, and we're dropping the foot all the way in and all the way out, all the way in and all the way out. And the appropriate resistance is key for this. So having the right mini band or TheraBand is vital to make sure that you're getting full range of motion and you're being challenged in that full range of motion as well. Next exercise we can do for the ankles is balance work. So single leg balance, standing on one leg and then adding in some progressions. You can close your eyes, which will make it a lot harder. You can look left and right, which will make it a lot harder, or you can do both, close your eyes and look left and right. Once you've mastered those, you can hold those for about a minute. You want to progress to an unstable surface, so using some kind of a cushion or a Bosu ball if you have one in the gym. This single leg balance work gets you to, again, control the ankle as it kind of rolls over and back. And those little muscles in the ankle joint that go, we'll say, left and right of that ankle, which come down the sides, they're involved in controlling that balance. So if you're stepping on that cushion, or if you're doing your single leg balance work and you find that you're fatiguing on the inside or the outside of the ankle, that's most likely those smaller muscles that we're rehabbing. The last thing then that we can do for the ankle is some hopping or jump and land mechanics. So a very simple drill to do is a hop and stick drill. So you're hopping forwards, backwards, left and right, and sticking your landing every time. Practicing things like box jumps or jumping from the box to the floor and landing softly can be beneficial as well. The ligaments around the ankle provide you with proprioception, so they basically help tell your body where your ankle is in space, and if you lose those ligaments, then you lose some of that proprioception. So if you jump into the air and if you come down but your foot is planted outwards, so say this is my foot, if I jump in the air, normally when I land like this on the floor, whereas if I jump in the air and my toes are pointed down like this and I land on my toes like this, I can go over on my ankle. That can be got to do with proprioception. So we need to be able to keep that ankle up so that when we land and we don't roll the ankle. And jumping and landing practice helps with that. The last thing we're going to talk about is shoulder injuries, and in particular rotator cuff injuries. And these are quite common in hurling football, because when we're tackling, typically we have an arm outstretched here and we're trying to pull somebody back. So the main ones we're concerned about are internal rotators, or our subscapularis, and our external rotators, or teres minor, and our inverse spinalis. These exercises are already worked into your program with your cable machine where you're doing your external rotation and your internal rotation. So make sure you keep those going and be consistent with doing those. A big thing with any injury is making sure that we always compare to the other side. So a good way to know, am I fully recovered, or can I stop doing my rehab, or can I lay off the rehab a little bit, is compare to the other side. So whether it's a hamstring, ankle or shoulder injury, always be doing the other side as well. And when that injured side is as good or better than the good side, that's when you can lay off the rehab. Or if you're ever wondering, is this ankle injury something I should be rehabbing, do a few tests with it, do a balance exercise, do a strengthening exercise, do a stretch exercise, and see how it compares to the other side. And if it is worse than the other side, then definitely work on it. And just to highlight once more, your resistance training program is so important for reducing your risk of any kind of injury. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you got any questions, leave them in the comment section below. If you liked the video, stick a like in the video, let the boys know about the video, and I will see you in the next one. Slán.